Everyone. So the Celtics made one of the big acquisitions this offseason, going and getting Kristaps Porzingis for Marcus Smart. And look, it was a really solid pickup. He is basically an upgrade over Al Horford, and a bigger Al Horford will give them some little more versatility. He'll also help in those stagnant moments for the Boston Celtics, right, where they kind of struggled to score. Just dump it down to the big man, let him go to work, let him work it in the post or operate, run some pick and pops, just get him involved on the offense. But the Celtics, the big question is how much better did they really get? Now, with him and Robert Williams, you got great size, you got defense, good luck trying to score on the interior, but a lot of the same problems are still prevalent, right? And the fact that they unloaded Marcus Smart is a big concern, right? Now, they do have a lot of, they have several guys that kind of supplement what he provided, right? Derek White was great for them last year on both sides of the basketball, and he can easily fill in and plug in for Marcus Smart and play that role. They still have Malcolm Brogdon, although there are reports that they may still look to move him. The Clippers are still apparently interested in Malcolm Brogdon, but they just kind of want a little more time on his physical. And then they just have some solid all-around depth, right? They probably go Kristaps Porzingis and Al Horford in the starting unit, and kind of bubble wrap Robert Williams until they get into the playoffs. That's probably the best course of action for them. And then what ends up happening with Grant Williams, right? There's reports that they look to trade him for maybe a first-round pick because they're probably not going to be able to retain him with the new CBA in play. So they have essentially their core, but Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, they're, as much as they are responsible for the success of the Celtics, they're also just as much, if not more, responsible for the failures that the Celtics have. I mean, how many times does Jason Tatum just completely disappear and almost unplayable in moments? He's done a better job over the years of making impacts in other ways, right? Like before, if Jason Tatum just didn't have it going offensively, you almost had to take him out of the game. Right now, he still is impacting on the defensive side. We've seen games where he's got 12 points, but he also will go and get you, 10 assists now. So he has evolved a bit to get a little bit more well-rounded, but offensively, he's became a lot more predictable. He's pretty much just driving to the hoop or knocking down the three ball, shooting the three, or getting the ball at the elbow and taking that fadeaway. He's not as versatile of a scorer as he was in earlier years. And then Jaylen Brown, he's kind of filled the gap a lot as far as just being that player. But even he has his faults, dribbling. That dude cannot dribble at times and just is a disaster. But they need to become leaders. And that's the problem, right? Who is the leader and the voice on the Boston Celtics? Losing Marcus Smart, I think, is going to have more of an impact than they realize. Right? Now, again, his skill sets is replicable, right? Especially with Derek White, Brogdon. They're fine in regards to what his production was on the basketball court. But it's the things beyond the basketball court. Right? And even Marcus Smart, to an extent, he was the guy, why is he shooting the ball late in games? The game's on the line and you're running sets for Marcus Smart, when you should be getting Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. And that's a real question mark. Okay, well, why weren't they taking the shots? What's going on with that? Right? And there was reports of, Marcus Smart and Joe Mazzulla, them kind of having back and forths and, the lack of just respect there at times. But also Marcus Smart, him being the guy in Boston, right? Look, Jason Tatum is their best player. Marcus Smart is the guy, right? He's the locker room guy. He's the hard-nosed guy. He's the one that all these guys kind of look to for a guy like Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown. They all look for him to kind of be that voice and that guidance. You've seen him basically running plays and in the huddle, literally telling people what to do and stuff. And so I get the idea of hey, maybe we should get rid of him and kind of force Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown to to have to step up and be those guys, right? Make them be the leaders on this team, right? Allow Joe Mazzulla to be the voice that these guys listen to. But that doesn't mean that that's the best course of action. That doesn't mean that that's going to end in a good result, right? Joe Mazzulla, yeah, sure. Like, will he be better this year? Probably. You would hope so. You would imagine so. But like a lot of the stuff that he was really bad at was all very simple and fixable. And he, based on things that he said, was aware of in the moments, like calling timeouts, like, oh, well, I like to save timeouts for this roster for the end of game, so if we need them, and then just ends up not using them, like things like that, certain rotations, like play calling, play sets. The offense is just very stagnant and predictable, right? Like, what is coming, it's a lot of isolation. There's not, like, they have, like, the Boston Celtics are best when the ball's moving, right? Like, you'll see moments where it's like everybody touches the ball. You have Smart initiate, boom, passes it to Tatum to Brown. Brown kicks it out to, White. White kicks it out to Al Horford in the corner. Pump fake, drive, kick out to White, boom, splash, right? And it's like everybody's touching the ball. The ball's moving, the ball's flowing, and the Celtics are really tough to beat. But then, like, you'll see, like, that'll get them leads. They'll be up 20. And then all of a sudden they're losing the game, and you're like, how did that happen? And it's like, if you were watching or you go and rewind it, it's like, oh, they just completely went away from that. It became Jason Tatum step back threes 4 or 5 in a row and he missed, or Jaylen Brown dribble it and just turning the ball over, or taking some fall away tough shot when he doesn't have to. Like, it's just a lot of, like, they go away from what is successful, and there's concerns that, like, Marcus Smart was the glue. Marcus Smart was the guy to pull them all together and bring them all together. Now you don't have that. Are they going to listen and respect Joe Mazzulla, especially when he's blowing games for them? Because unless he just has some, like, drastic change, it's probably going to blow some games for him. And then on top of that, like, can Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, can they be the guys and be the leaders? Right? Jason Tatum, look, like, he has been more vocal about, like, I'm one of the best players in the league type thing. Like, before, he was like, hey, I'm not a leader, I'm not a guy, like, I'm just, here to, like, he's kind of broken out of his shell a little bit. So there is the hope that, like, Jason Tatum just steps up and is like, no, I'm the dude, right? This is my team, let's go. But then does that start being a conflict with Jaylen Brown? Because Jaylen Brown, he believes he's the number one. He's more of an alpha and a leader than Jason Tatum is. So does Jaylen Brown end up taking that vocal point and kind of being that dude, right? And it's like, yeah, sure, but is that what's best for the Celtics? Look, I think Marcus Smart going to the Memphis Grizzlies is going to help tremendously, because they're going to have somebody that isn't going to take the nonsense. They basically got a better Dylan Brooks, right? And he's also a guy that is not some dude that's running his mouth just to run his mouth, right? He's a guy that doesn't play, no nonsense, right? He's the guy that's going to work the hardest. He's going to be a great, like, it made all the sense in the world for the Memphis Grizzlies. When the Memphis Grizzlies landed Marcus Smart, I was like, that is genius. They're going to be really small, right? Because you're going to have Ja, Smart, and Baines. So they're going to be tiny, but, like, okay, like, that makes sense, right? Marcus Smart, they need somebody like him in the locker room. They need somebody that can basically be what he was for the Boston Celtics, right? The guy that kind of rallies the troops, the guy that doesn't let people get out of line. He's not going to stand for Ja's nonsense. He's not just going to defer to Ja and let Ja, like, think he's running stuff. Like, they need that, right? But so do the Celtics, I think. Are they better? Yes. I just don't know how much better, right? Because, like, Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown are still going to be the primary guys. They're still going to run a lot of isolation. They're still going to take a lot of terrible shots. And Kristaps Porzingis is now the third option, who is coming off of one of his most efficient years, but it's still, 23 points a game. Like, so he's probably dropping to, like, 18 a game at best. Maybe you get him to 20. But how efficient is that because of the type of shots and the sets? And is Joe Mazzulla going to do what he needs to do? And like, who's going to be the vocal leader in that room? Like, because, yeah, you have, like, it's just, who's the guy that when things are going, the ship is sinking and things are looking bad. Like, who's the guy that sits and talks to everybody? Because I don't think it's the coach. I don't think it's Mazzulla. I don't think it's Tatum. Maybe it's Brown. But I don't know, right? Like, it's not Porzingis. It's not going to be White. It's not going to be Brogdon. Maybe it's Al Horford, but there was something about Marcus Smart. I really think that they're going to look back and regret trading Marcus Smart. I really do. I just think the Marcus Smart trade is going to come back to bite them. And look, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they end up winning the chip this year and all is right and Porzingis was the missing piece for them. I do think Porzingis is going to help a lot, but I think losing Marcus Smart hurts more than what they realize. But anyway, as always, this is a discussion, so I pass the question to you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. Agree with me, disagree with me, somewhere in between. What are your thoughts on Marcus Smart leaving the Boston Celtics? Do you think it's going to hurt? Do you think they'll be fine? What do you think of him on the Memphis Grizzlies? Do you think it's a solid pickup? I already feel whatever your thoughts are. Love to hear it. Let me know.